The American Civil War, like all wars, was full of violence. But one man stood out in the midst of all the brutality. William Anderson, a sociopath who lived for spilling blood, was one of the most terrifying Confederate guerrilla leaders in Missouri during the Civil War. Prepare to meet a true beast of the Confederacy. Anderson was born in Hopkins County, Kentucky, in 1837 or 1839. When he was a child, his family relocated to Huntsville, Missouri. Then in 1857, the Andersons traveled to Kansas, settling near Council Grove. Despite not having any slaves, the Andersons were strongly pro-slavery. They quickly befriended a local pro-slavery judge, I.A. Baker, and the family also witnessed the bleeding Kansas slavery conflict that had engulfed the region. By 1860, Anderson had acquired property, joined his father in the freight shipping business, and started horse trading. With the outbreak of the Civil War, the demand for horses skyrocketed, and Anderson began stealing horses and wagon trains to sell along the Santa Fe Trail. He and his father and brothers had a reputation as horse thieves and killers. He and Baker tried to join the Confederate Army in late 1861, but were assaulted in Vernon County, Missouri, by the 6th Kansas Cavalry. After being arrested, Baker distanced himself from the Andersons by ordering the arrest of William's brother, Griffith. When William attempted to have the warrant suspended, a fight broke out and Baker shot and murdered the Anderson patriarch. On July 2, 1862, William murdered Baker, burned down his home, and escaped to Missouri. Then, 2 of his sisters were imprisoned on the orders of Union Commander General Thomas Ewing because they were suspected of being rebel supporters and spies. When 2 of his sisters were killed, and a third was disabled for life in the collapse of the jail where they were being imprisoned by Union officials, Anderson's already terrible murdering frenzy grew. Anderson, nicknamed Bloody Bill, would go into battle without regard for the odds, showing no mercy and torturing prisoners by chopping off their ears. Anderson initially joined an anti-slavery pro-Union band of guerrillas known as Jayhawkers, but later switched sides and joined a band of pro-Confederate Bushwhackers. In the partisan warfare of Kansas and Missouri, these gangs were frequently more interested in pillaging, looting, and personal gain than in advancing an ideological cause. These savage guerrillas targeted federal forces and frightened Unionist civilians. They spread tremble throughout Missouri by frequently wearing their opponents' uniforms and paying no attention to the rules of war. Anderson's squad of just 80 men was one of the most notorious, famed for decorating their saddles with the scalps of killed enemies. In Missouri, William and Jim Anderson established a gang with Bill Reed, robbing and fighting Union soldiers before joining Quantrill's forces in early 1863. After the theft near Council Grove in May 1863, Quantrill's men were ambushed by federal troops and forced to split up. Anderson was quickly promoted to lieutenant, earning quasi-independent authority and participating in operations in Westport, Kansas, and Lafayette County, Missouri. Anderson was asked why he joined Quantrill, and he responded,
"I have chosen guerrilla warfare to revenge myself for wrongs that I could not honorable revenge otherwise. I lived in Kansas when this war commenced, because I would not fight the people of Missouri, my native state. The Yankees sought my life but failed to get me. They revenged themselves by murdering my father and destroying all my property."
On August 21, 1863, Quantrill and Bloody Bill led around 450 Confederate raiders into pro-Union Lawrence, Kansas, partially motivated by revenge against Ewing.
"Rush onto the town!"
was the order. They charged forward with the yell of demons. The attack was meticulously prepared. Every man knew what he had to do. Groups were sent to every region of town, and it was done so quickly that before people could understand the meaning of their first yell, the entire town was filled with them. They poured into every road. The guerrillas' riding was flawless. Their horses hardly touched the earth, and the riders sat with their bodies and arms entirely free, revolvers fully loaded, shooting at every home and man they passed, and howling like demons at every bound. On each side of this stream of fire, as it poured toward the street, were men falling dead and wounded, and women and children half-dressed, running and screaming. Some are attempting to flee danger, while others rush to the aid of their deceased friends. The Kansas State Journal was the first newspaper in Lawrence to resume publication following the attack. On October 1, 1863, they distributed their first copy. It stated that every business in Lawrence had been sacked, every shop, with the exception of 5, had been torched, every residence in Lawrence had been looted, and 160 men and boys had been slaughtered. On August 23, 1863, the Leavenworth Daily Conservative reported that the guerrillas inflicted $2 million in damage and took $250,000 in cash. In the winter of 1863, Quantrill took his men into Texas, where they were commanded by General Henry E. McCulloch. Bloody Bill quickly broke with Quantrill and left to meet his mistress, one Bush Smith, in Sherman. Quantrill then tracked Anderson to Bonham, where Anderson alerted McCulloch that Quantrill was robbing innocent people. McCulloch then ordered Quantrill to report to him at his headquarters and imprisoned him. When Quantrill successfully escaped, McCulloch ordered his return, dead or alive, and Anderson and his crew joined the pursuit. After some fighting between the two groups of bushwhackers, Quantrill retreated across the Red River. Anderson's men returned to Missouri in the spring of 1864, free of Quantrill's supervision, and disguised themselves as Union soldiers, staging a series of raids in which they ambushed federal troops and murdered or scalped citizens. Anderson quickly became Missouri's most infamous guerrilla, expanding his local support network and drawing vicious recruits like Jesse James. The guerrilla war in Missouri was brutal, but what Bloody Bill did in the little Missouri town of Centralia in September 1864 stands out. Anderson's men had stopped a passing train, only to find 22 unarmed federal soldiers returning home on vacation. When Bloody Bill discovered them, he had the troops stripped and massacred in what one witness described as a carnival of blood. The wounded were shot multiple times, and their remains were mutilated, but it did not end there. Anderson and other bushwhackers then set up an ambush for the forces tasked to pursue them, killing 150 Federals in cold blood. Anderson and his crew crushed faces, disemboweled bodies, removed scalps, and chopped noses. It was said that no Union soldier finished the day with the same head as he had started, and Jesse James also was taking part in such a massacre. After the Centralia slaughter, things heated up for Bloody Bill's troops. The infuriated feds hired Samuel Cox, a 36-year-old former Army scout, to find Anderson. Bill's departure from Centralia involved looting and torturing Union sympathizers, as well as multiple incidents of reported rape, particularly during a raid on Glasgow, Missouri. Anderson was cornered by a group of 150 Union soldiers near the Ray County of Albany on October 26, 1864. Anderson rode through the Union line during the fierce combat, only to be shot twice in the back of the skull. His troops made a desperate effort to save his body, but were unsuccessful. At least one man, and according to other sources, up to 10, died in the process. The victorious Unionists beheaded the body and dragged it through Richmond, Missouri streets. The head was raised atop a spiked telegraph pole. Finally, Anderson's body was buried in an unmarked grave in Richmond Cemetery. Within a week of Anderson's burial, Jayhawker Colonel Charles Jennison's men from Kansas stopped at the grave. Southern sympathizers among the village women carried flowers to decorate the burial place. When the Jayhawkers saw the flowers, they got off their horses. They stomped the flowers into the ground, kicking the soft pile and stamping it down to an even level, making it difficult to locate in subsequent years. Other tales claim that the Jayhawkers discharged themselves over Anderson's grave in an act of pure wrath. According to unconfirmed rumors, Anderson survived the Albany battle and the mutilated body belonged to another person. According to the story, the real Anderson used his alleged death to flee to Brown County, Texas, where he married and enjoyed a stable and respectable life. On November 2, 1927, William C. Anderson of Brown County died at his Salt Creek residence. Anderson's execution would afterwards serve as a motive for Jesse James's 1869 bank heist in Gallatin, Missouri, in which he mistakenly shot someone he thought was Cox. Thanks for watching, subscribe and press likes.